It was very challenging because what I found was we were doing a really good job. There was a need for, good cleaning companies in Tallahassee. And because it's she and I, we were in it and we did it really well. And so what happened was 3 years into it, my phone was ringing off the hook while we were at work. And I'm like, it's not fair to my employer to continue to try to build my business, and getting calls during the day. Couldn't do it. So we sat down one evening and we actually added up the amount of buildings that we could clean ourselves to supplement my income as a paralegal. So I could quit doing that and then put all of my effort into my business. I thought if I could work as hard for my daytime job as I'm working for myself.
How much money could you make? Yeah.
Wow. So that's how it started.
From Fiore Communications, it's How I Got Here, a show of inspiring stories from Tallahassee area leaders, business owners, and neighbors. All the challenges, opportunities, inspirations, the twists and turns of life that led them to where they are today. Everyone has a story worth telling, and I am really grateful that we get to bring a few of them to you. I truly have been changed by my conversations with these amazing people, and I'm confident you will be too.
I'm Dave Fiore, and welcome to the special Chamber Conference edition of the How I Got Here podcast. My first guest is Kristi Kreitlow. Kristi is the CEO and founder of Quick and Clean Commercial Cleaning Services. The Fort Myers native is married to her husband, Walt, and they have 2 daughters, Caitlin and Lexi, as well as 2 dachshunds, Willow and Grace, which sounds like a TV show. Is that maybe?
They're babies.
Okay.
No.
All right, so first, welcome, Kristi.
Thank you.
And thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So you were born and raised in Fort Myers.
I was.
Right? So tell us about what family life was like for you, parents, siblings, kind of what were those early years like?
So I grew up in Fort Myers. I spent a lot of time on the beach. I have a younger brother and then my mom and dad. Both of my sets of grandparents lived in Fort Myers as well. So we had a really close family growing up.
So you had family around? Right?
All the time.
Okay.
And then what brought me to Tallahassee was I applied for FSU to go to school, and my dad happened to get a job offer up here at the exact same time. So I was able to actually move with them up to Tallahassee and stay at home and go to school, and then I worked as a waitress in the evening just to make a little bit of money.
Okay. Well, we're not going to let you get away with your early years quite that quickly.
Oh, darn.
So we're going to come back.
Darn.
So no, that's fine. So what kind of kid were you? What kind of student were you? Did you like school? Were you involved in things? Kind of give us a snapshot of that.
I did very well in school. I was an AB student. I always wanted to never disappoint my father, and so I had to do really, really well. Really well.
Yeah. Okay. So did you have any interest or activities or anything in school?
The beach.
The beach.
That was it.
Just going to the beach.
That's all that mattered in high school was the beach.
Okay.
And sometimes skipping school.
So you went to the beach during school hours?
I did.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure there's a statute of limitations on that. You're probably fine. All right. So you graduated from Cypress Lake High School.
I did.
Right? And then you went to Edison Community College. Right? And it was named after Thomas Edison because that was his winter home. I assume everybody knows that, but if you're from that area, I lived in that area for a while. So did you have a career plan for after school? Did you know what you were going to do?
I always was very interested in law enforcement and law work. It's just something that interests me. So I decided at that time I was going to go to school and become a paralegal. So I did that. I went through Edison, and then I went to the National Center for Paralegal Training and became a certified paralegal and spent 25 years of my life as a paralegal.
Okay. So just real quickly, describe what a paralegal does. What was your job?
My focus was civil litigation because I love that so much. It was a lot of organizing, getting the lawyers ready for trial, and so that's my strong suit. It always has been. And it was always a challenge, and it was big cases, and so that's what I did.
Okay. So let's switch gears a little bit now and talk about your husband, Walt.
Okay.
All right. When did you meet? How'd you meet? What's that story?
So we met in 1994 and at a bar. And we lived.
It wasn't
together.
online dating.
It wasn't online
so
dating, so.
Identify your generation and apply it, right?
Correct. And so we were playing pool, and he thought he could beat me, and he found out he did not.
Nice.
Go girls. And
are you sure he wasn't letting you beat him?
Oh no, he didn't let me beat him.
Yeah, okay,
He
all
was definitely wanting to.
Because that's a good date move. That's a strong.
Yeah, he wanted to beat me, but
Okay.
no, he was all talk that night, so it was funny. Since then, he's beat me many times, but not now, or not then.
Right.
But yeah, so we met and we married 2 years later, and then we had our daughter Caitlin, who's in the front row with me, and our daughter Lexi, and we stayed in Tallahassee for the following 3 or 4 years. We relocated up to Atlanta for just a couple of years, which is where I went to the National Center for Paralegal Training. And then when we decided Atlanta was not our thing, so we came back to Tallahassee, and I went back into the legal field and continued to raise our family and our girls, and we are big on family.
Right. Great. So Walt's working in law enforcement at this time, right? And you're
Yes.
working as a paralegal.
Correct.
And he was also in the Army National Guard and the reserves,
He was.
right?
Yes.
And served 4 deployments,
4.
4 to Iraq and Afghanistan.
Correct.
All right. So tell us about what happened after his 4th deployment.
Okay. So the deployments back, years ago were a lot longer than they are now. Now they're a maximum of like 9 months. So he was gone about 18 months. So over an 8-year period, 5 of those years he was gone. I mean, he came back a little bit here and there, but 5 of those years he was gone.
Right.
When he finally returned back from Afghanistan, he came back and lo and behold, PTSD just jumped on him like it does a lot of other veterans. But also he came back with a traumatic brain injury from, a bomb exploding. And so he kind of just dove in and in depression and stayed there for a long, long time. So Caitlin and I got to work, and we just started quick and clean out of a shed that we had in our side yard. We started cleaning buildings at night to make extra money because Walt was just not in a good place. And so what do? You support him. You don't leave him. You support him. And so that's what we did. And it took about 10 years for him to kind of get back to a good place. A lot of family and tough love and therapy and everything that you can imagine we went through.
Right. So to kind of set the stage, you're his primary caregiver.
I am.
You're still working as a paralegal, and you're cleaning offices at night for a while.
Yeah, 7 years ago. That was the
That was
perfect
it.
setting.
Okay.
I worked all day, about probably 50 to 60 hours a week as a paralegal because we had big cases and they needed me to work that too. So after hours, Caitlin and I would pack up and go clean some buildings to make extra money because Walt was really not able to work. And a lot of people didn't really know that. We just didn't share that side of our story
Right.
for the longest time. But, now that things are starting to kind of get better for him and he's not going through the embarrassment, which is that I don't know why he was embarrassed, but I guess, the stigma with PTSD is a real thing.
Sure.
And so he kind of just buried himself for a while.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you went through that, and for him, and
Thank you.
I'm grateful for his service.
Me too.
For sure, yeah. So at some point you decide that it's time to give up the paralegal and jump on the cleaning full-time and make it your business and the thing you're going to invest yourself in.
Yes.
So what was that decision process like?
It was very challenging because what I found was we were doing a really good job. There was a need for, good cleaning companies in Tallahassee. And because it's she and I, we were in it and we did it really well. And so what happened was 3 years into it, my phone was ringing off the hook while we were at work. And I'm like, it's not fair to my employer to continue to try to build my business, and getting calls during the day. Couldn't do it. So we sat down one evening and we actually added up the amount of buildings that we could clean ourselves to supplement my income as a paralegal. So I could quit doing that and then put all of my effort into my business. I thought if I could work as hard for my daytime job as I'm working for myself.
How much money could you make? Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
So that's how it started.
That's great. So you make that transition, and then when did you decide that, as it started to take off, that you wanted to start bringing on employees and kind of make it more than just you and your daughter, but kind of a company?
So about probably a year and a half into it, we started hiring employees because it was just she and I, and we couldn't handle the amount of work we were getting. So I started with employees right away.
Okay.
And tried to manage that while also working during the day. So it just became a lot.
So in a cleaning business, and I know that I'm sure have a very high standard for when something is clean, is that right? Yeah. So, but for all of us who have children, understand that the definition of clean can be a moving target, right? There are different ideas about
Very
what's
much
clean
so.
or not. So what did you do as the leader to impress your standards on the people who were working for you?
Our biggest attribute, I think, is that we've built a management structure. That sounds so simple, but in reality, if you have someone who's checking the work and not just going in and grabbing the trash and leaving the building and hoping that the client is happy, that makes a big, big difference. And so that was one of the things that we strive to do, and we did that like right away. So we have systems in place where we do monthly business building checks, plus our supervisors are in the buildings all of the time. So we're constantly getting feedback from our clients, rather than waiting for that complaint to come to the door, somebody to call and say, oh my gosh, you missed this or you missed this.
That's great. And we're coming to a close on your section for now, but I just want to ask, do you know anything about running a business or how to set it up or pay people or anything?
Not a single thing. I've had to learn as I go.
How did you do that? What did you do to equip yourself to run a business?
The basics was get a good lawyer, get a good payroll company, get a good bookkeeping company, and a good CPA. If you have those, at least you have those resources to be able to help you learn as you grow. I'm still learning as we grow.
Sure.
Every day.
Yeah. I think if you don't think like you're learning anything anymore, that's probably not a good sign.
Not at all. So if they say, if you're not growing, you're dying. So I don't want to just keep going up.
All right. Well, great. Well, thank you, Kristi, for sharing, and we're going to come back to you in a minute. And now we're going to move on to my next guest is Marina Lickson. Marina is the Tallahassee Program Manager for the Jim Moran Institute for Global Entrepreneurship, affectionately known as JMI
That's a
to
mouthful.
us. Yep. And you're the former owner of Honeytree Natural Foods with your husband, Bill. You're the mother of two daughters who was born in Oakland, California to two Navy parents and eventually settled in New England with your mom and two siblings, right?
Correct.
So, Marina, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate your being part of this. So from what I read, it sounds like your mom and her family provided quite the backdrop for your childhood.
Yes, very much so. So yeah, mom and dad, both Navy, and when they divorced, went with Mom to New England, and she subsequently was married again to my stepdad, Air Force. So military all around, baby brother, just retired from the Army, so it's everywhere. So, and I appreciate Walt's service as well. So yeah, Mom was one of 15, and biological dad, one of 7, stepdad, one of 7, so family up to here.
Yeah.
Was raised in a multi-generational home. My Italian immigrant parents, my grandmother lived upstairs, my grandfather died when I was very young, so being raised in that multi-generational Italian family with the aunts and the uncles and the cousins all around the neighborhood.
So what was the best part of that? What did you enjoy most about that as a kid?
Aside from the food or the
No,
food?
the food is reason enough,
Yeah.
but
The food.
the smell of the sauce in the morning and
That's exactly right. Yeah, we'd go down the street to Aunt Rose's for the fresh pasta, and then there was the chicken lady who would give us fresh chickens, and my uncle next door who had a big garden.
it's good to have a
so-
chicken lady.
Yeah, we, our last family reunion, and I will say that all 15 of my mother's, my mom and her siblings are all deceased now, but the last reunion, first cousins and second cousins, it would be my generation and my children, we had over 300 people.
Wow.
So it was
Right.
never a dull moment.
Right. And in that mix, you had some entrepreneurs, right? So you had some modeling there as a young person?
All of the aunts and uncles, a majority of them were small business owners, barbershops and tire shops and all of it. Anything you needed, there was a family member that had a small business.
Right.
So, yeah.
So you saw a strong work ethic, right? How did that impact you?
Yeah, I think, that generation, we were talking about that earlier, given the keynote today, who was fabulous, that generation, learning what was right and wrong from my immigrant grandmother to my hardworking aunts and uncles. I mean, it was what you did. It was ingrained in my DNA. So yeah, my first job was 15. I was 15.
Yeah, at a photo kiosk
Yes.
thing, right?
The Snap Shack. Yes. Yeah. The Snap Shack. It was a little kiosk at the brand new mall that had just opened up literally down the street from my house. So I could ride my bike. And the small business owner, entrepreneur Al, who owned it, said, "You're 15. Yeah, you can work. Mom and Dad say it's okay." And I worked there all the way to my days at community college. So high school, all the way.
So can I ask you, what's the weirdest photo you ever saw?
Listen, I probably can't even say back then. It was different then.
Everything went back then. It's
Yeah,
just like,
people would drop their rolls of film. I just came back from my honeymoon, and you'd be like,
Oh,
these
no,
are going to be
no.
good,
No.
So, or new babies were always
Yeah.
wonderful, or, maybe the cute boy that lived down the street,
So you didn't make any extra prints and stash them? with the
Definitely
cute boy
not
or
do it,
anything, right?
never did that,
Okay.
but certainly check to make sure that they were all printed correctly.
Sure, that's your
Sure.
job. I mean, you have to do that.
Uh-huh.
Right. All right. So you said in your bio that you sent me that you did what was expected of a young Italian girl. And
Yeah.
what was that?
Got married, had babies, young, way too young. So yeah, that was what was expected. You had two choices for a career way back then, and from the family that I grew up with, you could be a nurse or you could be a teacher if you were the girls. Boys, it was unlimited, but I literally was raised in that. You're either going to be this or that, and none of that worked for me. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So later on, we're skipping ahead a little bit. You were working in the defense industry in Connecticut.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
At a time when President Clinton cut the defense budget. At
Yeah.
the same time, you were going through a divorce.
Yep.
So
fast
not a
forward
great
there.
period
Yep.
there.
Lots of big periods there. Yeah, so the defense budget was cut. My ex-husband at the time lost his job. I lost my job. So there we were, two little kids, Connecticut, and it was time for a change. And so Florida was my goal, my intention. Tallahassee sort of happened. And I remember the last day in Connecticut, there was an article in the newspaper that I read every day. If you could tell President Clinton just one thing, what would you tell him? And of course, I was pissed, and I was a single working woman at that point, and healthcare benefits were atrocious, and on and on and on. So I tore just a piece of yellow legal paper, and I wrote a note and shoved it in an envelope and sent it. I never thought anything of it. Moved to Florida, looked for just a little part-time job. And I will also say that all of my mom's sisters, 6, all died of some sort of cancer. Breast cancer, ovarian cancer, my grandmother as well. And so I made a choice when my girls were young that I wasn't going out that way. So just made healthier choices, and so fast forward to Tallahassee and got a job at a health food store.
Okay.
And I will say, Dave, that got settled in Tallahassee and the phone rang, because it was on the wall back then, right? Like we talked about, rotary on the phone. And I answered the phone, and this woman said, "Hi, this is, so-and-so from the White House." And I was like, yeah. So that happened 3 or 4 times when I hung up on the White House. And then finally she called and said, "Don't hang up on me. We got your letter. We want to know if you would like to come to the White House and tell President Clinton to his face kind of what you said in this, torn piece of yellow legal paper." And so fast forward, the Clinton administration was with the Department of Labor, and I think the Secretary of Labor at the time was Robert Reich. They were doing a working women count initiative. And so I was part of that initiative and got to go to the White House and sat next to Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. Of course, this was right as all the Lewinsky stuff was blowing up. So I will say being in the White House during that time was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because you could tell something was happening, and it was literally the next week that all of that blew up. So in any case, that was an honor and very stressful, Kristi, and you were not there to hold my hand. But it was fascinating. So I got to tell him exactly what I thought of what was going on as a working woman, and got to be introduced by Hillary Clinton and introduce Bill Clinton. So
wow.
it was fun. It was cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right, so tell us about how you got connected to Honeytree in the first place.
Yeah, so I got a job there, needed to do something, and, it was in my wheelhouse with, how I lived my life and how I was raising my girls. And the previous owner, and now I met Bill at the juice bar of the Honeytree. And then the owner said, "I'd like to sell the store." And so fast forward, Bill and I bought the existing business and then grew it to 3 stores. We had 2 counties. We had 1 in Gadsden County and 2 in Leon County in Tallahassee.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So for those who may not remember, just real quickly, tell us what the Honeytree was all about.
Yeah, it was a natural health food store, right? Way before Amazon, way before Whole Foods, way before, Greenwise. It was us and New Leaf, quite frankly, and we were good partners together. They were bigger and we were smaller. So we had a great working relationship, and we were on 2 different sides of town.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And in 2012, you went through JMI's Small Business Executive Program.
With you,
With me.
Dave.
We were class 2
We were class 2. Woo woo.
Woo.
Yeah.
We don't do like LT. We didn't have symbols and
we
stuff.
need to. I'm going to work on that.
Right.
I'm going to work
Right.
on some sort of a symbol. I went through the Jim Moran Institute. I was lucky enough to hear about it and to somebody to say you should apply, and I did, and got in. And the very first day, I remember. I think it was Tatum, but I don't really remember.
Right.
Talked about exit strategy, and I was like, "Geez, I don't have an exit strategy. I just got into this, several years ago. Why do I have to worry about getting out?" And then, fast forward a few years later, my husband and I were in Chicago. My baby brother was becoming a brigadier general, and we were there for the change of command ceremony. And my husband said, "I had a sore throat." And I'm like, "You're going to be fine. We got shit to do. You're going to be fine." And sure enough, the next morning, he woke up with a huge neck, and he was in the ICU for 4 days while I ran to the ceremony and came back. And by the time we got home, he was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. So that was the first thing that happened. And then Amazon at that time bought Whole Foods and changed the whole discount structure of the natural foods industry. And so as a mom and pop, when you look at your strategic plan, I was like, I am working way too hard for not a lot.
Right.
And then the third thing was my last store was in Market Square, and Market Square was sold. I think y'all remember that. Of course, it's still almost not open all these years later, but the owners were a big conglomerate out of Texas that were not so excited to have all of us small businesses, and they were not, they weren't horrible, but they weren't encouraging and supportive.
Right. Okay, so you ended up closing the store.
So I ended up closing the store, which was a great decision
Right.
for us and me, yeah.
Right. And then you ended up back at JMI,
I
where
did.
you are now as a program manager. So
I did. There was a job in the paper, there was a job available that shows my.
Right.
And I applied for the job and got a call from Melissa, and she said, "There's another job that we think that you'd be better suited for." And so here I am in that role. Mike, my predecessor, did a great job in setting me up, the program up to be successful. And so I've subsequently met wonderful people like Kristi because of that.
And just in real quick nutshell, what are you in charge of? What services do you provide?
Thanks, Dave. Great question. So, program manager, so in charge of the Small Business Executive Program, the Nonprofit Executive Program, and all the peer-to-peer groups. And we're all over the state, not just in Tallahassee. We're here in Jacksonville, Tampa, Orlando, Palm Beach. So we are across the state.
Hey, everybody. Just a quick reminder that this episode is brought to you by Fiore Communications. Just like people, every business has a story to tell, and we've been helping our clients tell their story since 2001, because who you are as a company is just as important as what you do. To learn more about how telling your story can make a difference in your business, visit fiorecommunications.com. Thanks again for listening. Now back to the show.
So what do you enjoy most about working with entrepreneurs? Being an entrepreneur yourself and seeing all these young in their business,
Right.
eager and ready to start something. What's your favorite part about that process?
I just love seeing the sparkle in their eye. I also love when we have an event where I'm able to connect them to a business that's a little bit more advanced than they are. Everyone here has been extremely wonderful and generous with their knowledge, especially in peer groups. It's really wonderful to see small businesses lean into each other and lean on each other. Because for me anyway, and I think probably the same for you, you feel like you're all alone, you're on an island. How am I going to meet payroll? This person, I want to fire them, but I can't, or I really would love this to happen. And so just there's so much.
Right, great.
Yeah.
All right, I want to pivot a little bit and come back to Kristi for a second, since I still have a little more time. And then we're going to get into some questions that are kind of overall back and forth. But just wanted to get back with your job and the people you work with. And sort of the similar question is, what is really your favorite part of the job? When you see, when you're helping businesses or organizations have a better place to work, I imagine that's satisfying. And just want to know, are the relationships, it's kind of what is your favorite part of the job you do now?
I think the most rewarding is going into a business and knowing that our name stands for something that's good. There are, we always get lots of requests for cleaning bids, and we'll go into, to a building and they're like, oh, we just want, cleaning once every other week or once a month, and stuff. And I don't want to say stuff like that, but when we go in, we want to make sure that the job that we're bidding on, we can still look like we're taking pride in our work. So if it's, like, for example, your office where it's not as busy as something like the lottery building or.
It's just busy up here.
Right. No, I mean traffic-wise. But, it's making sure that we can provide the manpower to clean the building the way it should be cleaned, rather than it be so focused on budget. And I know everyone is really concerned about that, but it's my job to make you look good, and it's my job to make us look good. And so that's the biggest thing for me, is going in and making sure that we can, when people walk in the bathroom, they're like, okay, who cleans here? Rather than, ooh, who's cleaning here?
So I'll ask a similar question to the photo kiosk. Now, this is for you, Kristi.
Oh.
Are there any nightmare stories that you can share anonymously? There's got to be something nasty you came across.
There's
some point.
there's a lot. Yeah, people don't.
Are Tallahassee businesses a little less than we might imagine at times?
Yeah,
Cleanliness?
people sometimes just have no regard for their workplace at all, and just they mess it up really bad. I'm trying, because I'm like.
I am not pleased with that answer at all. I was really looking for something.
There are times where we'll get called during the day because it's that bad.
Like they can't even make it to the end of the day?
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
No. And so, and we've had a repeat offender in a couple of places where I'm like, can you get them like a leather chair so they stop going like on the cushion? So.
Okay, that's more what I was looking for. That's what we're after. All right, thank you.
So,
Enough said on that.
picture.
All right, good. So, and I'll ask this of both of you. This is how I finish all my podcasts, is we've talked about how you got to this point in your life. Mm-hmm. So where do you think here might be for you in 3 to 5 years from now?
I want to grow. So we are looking at expanding here in Tallahassee. We're starting to do some outside the city in Wakulla and Thomasville, Georgia, and I'm blanking on some of Panama City, Linwood, just kind of spreading out in North Florida.
Yeah.
Slow and steady, but we're going to do it.
Great. All right, Marina, same question for you. 3 to 5 years from now.
Yeah, I see myself right where I am now. I see some changes coming up for JMI in the fall, and hopefully that'll afford us an opportunity to expand who we work with. Right now, the criteria for the 2 programs is 3 years in business and at least 3 employees. So perhaps we'll open that up a little bit more in terms of number of years in business. And there's a lot of solopreneurs out there that need some help and guidance. And I will say that Mr. Moran, Mrs. Moran, and Moran Foundation has been so generous with their donation to FSU that it affords us to hold and have these programs at no cost to the small businesses and to the nonprofits. And so that just makes my heart happy. And I hope that every single small business has an opportunity to come through the program and or participate in a peer group, because it's great and it's at no cost. It's mind-blowing the opportunity that we have here.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I will say, just personally, my experience and interaction with the Chamber and JMI are extremely influential on the growth of my business, and helped somebody the same thing who didn't know anything about doing any of this stuff. Just the combination of those 2 resources have been amazing in my career too.
Yeah, that's so wonderful to hear, and we hear that all the time, which is just, who wouldn't want to be here doing exactly that in 5 years?
Okay, we're going to shift, thank you. We're going to shift gears a little bit now to ask a couple of kind of panel kind of discussion questions. And if we have time, we can even take a question or 2 from the group if you have anything else you want to know. So first question, and Marina, since you have the mic, you can answer first. So based on your experience, both as an entrepreneur and working with them now, what do you wish every person knew when they started a business?
Oh, that's such a hard question.
Sorry.
And I think the answer for me would be that it's hard, that it's not easy. If your business is widgets, you need to know everything you need to know about widgets and everything else. You need to know about employees. You need to know about HR. You need to know about finance. You need to know about exit strategy at the onset. And I think Kristi mentioned earlier, have a great CPA, have a good accountant, a good HR attorney, like have all of those resources in place. So that's my answer.
That's great.
Yeah.
Kristi, what about you?
Well, I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit. It really doesn't matter how small or big your business is. I mean, you can have 5 people and still need to have those things in line. You've got to have those resources, and I'm glad that I have done that. And it's just a learning thing. You know, building a business is not easy. You've got to get in there, and you've got to wear a lot of different hats. You know, we cleaned the buildings, I managed the buildings, we ran the operations. You know, there's so many things as a business owner that you have to do, especially when it's to be successful.
Yeah. Okay. So you come to entrepreneurship from very different places. One seemed like was kind of bred into you and you know, started from the beginning, and Kristi, you were kind of thrust into it out of necessity. So what do you think every successful person in business has in common?
Drive. I think that's the biggest thing is if you are not driven, if you're not focused, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a mission, you're not going to do well. So it's pulling from all your different resources. It's not just trying every single thing that you need to accomplish all by yourself. It's reaching out to those people that are friends, that are family, and saying, hey, like, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about this? Don't try to be the only person providing solutions for your company.
Right. I think that the idea that you have to be super passionate about what you do, like this is your dream life mission, I don't think it's the passion to be successful.
It is.
And the drive to do whatever it takes in whatever you choose. It doesn't have to be something you were born to do. As long as you put in the effort and decide, I'm going to do this,
I agree.
there's great satisfaction in accomplishing that, right?
Very much so.
All right. Marina, what do you think? What does everybody have in common who's been successful?
I think mistakes, quite frankly. I think that's how you learn and grow. You say, oh, this is going to be perfect. And then you go, oh my gosh, that was not right, you know, and you pivot and you continue on. And I also think if COVID taught us anything, it's how to pivot quickly and try something else, throw something else at the wall and see what sticks.
Great. So, Kristi, how important has it been for you in moving forward to have a person or a group of people that you can trust, bounce ideas off of, get input from as you make your business decisions moving forward?
You know, if you would have asked me that a couple years ago, my answer would have been different. But now that I am where I'm at, we're 7 years in, the community is huge. Your friendships, your relationships that you form, your business relationships. There's a lot of people in this room that are my friends that I've also leaned on tremendously for business advice, for answers to questions that I had no idea where to even turn. And then even like Marina said, the peer-to-peer groups, I'm going to boast on Jim Moran for a minute, but I really wanted to be part of a peer-to-peer group just to be able to have those resources and bounce ideas off of. Everybody has problems in their business. And so if other people can give you solutions or hey, I've experienced that.
Just know you're not alone in that, right?
Absolutely. Or it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. That's a great way to solve that issue. Or you know, that might not work right now, but in 3 years it might work beautifully. So it's important to have those confidences that you have.
Yeah, right. Marina, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's imperative to find your mentors, right? And they might not be in the same industry as you. I can remember coming up on, okay, what do I do? Do we close the business? You know, I really was focused on, you know, making sure my husband was healthy and well. And by the way, 7 years out, cancer-free. So I gotta make sure I say that.
That's great, yeah.
And so I remember seeking out very successful restaurateur here in Tallahassee. And I just needed some big girl mentoring. And I called her and only knew her peripherally and said, hey, can I just come and have coffee? I have some questions. And her advice was so sage. And again, her experience was way different than mine. And so finding your mentors.
Right. Okay. All right. Is there anything that you're particularly really looking forward to I know we talked about where you think you're going to be, but is there anything immediate a project you're excited about or something that you just can't wait to get going on?
I'm ready to expand in Panama City. That's my next goal. And so that is very exciting to me because I like challenges. And so obviously, since I've built this business, I'm a go-getter. So I'm going to go and tackle Panama City next and see what else we can do, in North Florida.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Marina.
Yeah, so again, big changes coming to JMI in the fall, and looking forward to whatever changes that brings to us. And it may not bring anything, but we're ready and open for any change. So yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you both very much.
Thank you,
we do
Dave.
have a little extra time. So does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Marina or Kristi? All right, I'm going to repeat the question so we can get it. So when you're looking for new employees, how do you source that? How do you find good team members?
So mine is different because 90% of our staff is part-time. So we place ads on Indeed. We do Facebook. We do word of mouth. We even advertise on Craigslist sometimes. Just kind of depends what area that we're looking for, but that's our primary source.
And I don't really obviously have employees, but I will say that the Chamber's website has great help there. We've got OEV, Office of Economic Vitality, and Career Source Capital Region. I will tell you that their services are for free. So if you are a small independent business and are looking for employees, don't forget those local resources because they're spectacular.
Yeah, let me repeat it. So how do you divide when you have the council of advisors and you take in what they have to say? How do you balance that with your own, what you know in your drive and your information? How do you work both of those together?
So for me, I don't have to use those resources probably less than 10% of the year, each year. I go in and I'm the CEO, and so I make all the decisions at the end of the day, and so I just try to work through some of the questions and make the best decisions I can for my company, and sometimes I make mistakes, and you just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going the next day. And so I feel like I have to be that leader for them.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said, and I'm old school, so I would do, piece of paper, pros and cons. This is what they said, this works, this, in theory, will it work for me and my business? And also, at the Jim Moran Institute, we use the business model canvas. And so that little piece of paper and your concept, putting it down and seeing, am I going to be able to make money on that concept before you make a big move is always very helpful, so.
Right. I've got a question. One of the reasons that I wanted to talk to both of you together is it always helps if there's some common bond between the people. And I didn't realize that you were friends when I did this, so that helps. But the idea that you're both women entrepreneurs and you both took a chance and, as women, you did that. Now, I'm so used to working with people who all do, women, men. I don't really think about that being a woman entrepreneur is a thing that needs to be set aside or treated differently or thought of differently these days. But is it, do you have a different experience? Is anything harder because of that from your, you've been doing it for a while now. Has anything changed over that? Is that still a discussion or not?
Well, since I have the mic, I'll go first, if that's okay with you. I think for me, being a co-owner with my husband, it was challenging, right? Because I was 51%. We were a minority-owned, women-owned business. And people, we'd be in front of our CPA, and they would be like, so Bill, what do you think? And he would be like, well, Marina, what do you think? So
Right.
it really, I think it's a little bit different now. I think the mindset has shifted a little, at least within the businesses that JMI is servicing right now. This cohort that just started last week, out of 20 in the cohort, there's one man. So all of these small business owners are women, and I may or may not have the statistic right. Please don't kill me. But women veterans, because we have a veterans program too in our national program that Melissa, our director, runs that program. And I think it's like 72% of women veterans are starting their own business. So yeah, it's awesome. So things are changing.
Yeah.
For me, it is, I don't give any thought to whether I'm competing against a man or a woman at all. It's about me and the service that we can provide, period.
Getting loans, talking business plan, nothing about that was...
I have not had a single issue. I
wouldn't think so, but
it's one of those things where I feel like, you represent yourself in the way that you speak and the way that you present yourself. And so I don't think it matters to a lot of people whether you're woman-owned or man-owned or...
Well, that's good.
That's just, or minority-owned. I don't think any of that really matters. It's who you are as a person.
Well, that's good. That's what I would assume.
Yeah.
But just wanted to ask. All right, any other questions? Yes. Good question. So are there advantages to being a woman in minority-owned business, doing business in Tallahassee?
So if you are trying to apply for, Leon County or the city or even some type of government, there is definitely a benefit to being woman-owned, no doubt about it. They do set asides for specific woman-owned businesses. I have not really dove in too much to the government side of cleaning. We could, but we just haven't. There's a lot of work to be done in there. And so it's
They have
easier.
leather chairs in the government, so that I don't know.
I hope so. But for me, it's just a lot easier for me to just go out here locally and try to get business that way. So I hope you do really well. Congratulations on starting your own business.
Yes, congratulations. We love it. There is a great advantage to being a certified minority-owned business. And actually, OEV is putting on a certification, sort of a boot camp, if you will, coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I encourage you to check it out. But I will also say that that's step one, right? Because you are a certified minority-owned, women-owned business, it doesn't mean that the state is going to say, hey, Susie, here's a $1 million contract. Doesn't work like that. That sets you up to begin the process of seeking out that job or those jobs. So congratulations. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Marina. Thank you, Kristi.
Thank you
And thank
so
you all
much,
for being
Dave.
part of this. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for listening to the show. You can subscribe at Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review. It really does make a difference. Thanks to my amazing staff at Fiore Communications, who pick up the slack while I'm working on these podcasts, and to Troy Bloom for composing our theme music. You can hear more of Troy's creations on Facebook and Instagram at Troy Bloom Music. To connect with the podcast or suggest a future guest, follow us on social media or email us at podcast@fiorecommunications.com.